This meeting is
Good
being recorded.
afternoon. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to episode 23 of Toast the Toss. We are calling it Final Nail in the Rainbow Coffin, and you will get to know what we mean when we say that. Now, quickly welcoming our panelists. We have an enlightened soul amongst us. Welcoming our first panelist, Adrut, who looks fabulous with the lighting. Now, moving on to our resilient and recovered friend who's just recovered from COVID-19. So, welcome, Bidhu. Moving on to our third panelist, which is after a long time, we're seeing him back in the show. Welcome, Rishab. Now, continuing his amazing debut from last week, we have Vinayakan or Vinayak as our fourth panelist. And as usual, like Conscience, we have our fifth panelist who's constant on our show, but who also, like Conscience, speaks the truth. Welcome, Tejas. Welcome, gentlemen. Let's get started. Now, let's begin with the Ashes. Finally, England are looking like they're going to win. Are they making a statement of saving some pride for themselves?
Too early, maybe. Too early. Just when we thought that the thing with the game is probably inching a little closer towards England, and you see what has been the hallmark for the India-South Africa Test match as well, which is one brings another, and all of a sudden they find themselves slightly in a bit of trouble. But yeah, fingers crossed. Let's hope with the kind of resilience that the England and more importantly their bowlers have shown in this particular Test match, I think it should probably inch a little closer towards England as the day goes by and the day that comes up.
Yeah, what this Test match has probably done is actually show that the Australians, they didn't really play all that well, and they're not the world beaters that they were made to look like in the first three Test matches. There are obvious flaws in their team as well, and I think the conditions at Hobart proved that. It was slightly helpful for the English bowlers, and then they delivered. So this goes to show that even if England win this one, it'll hurt them because they know that this Australian team was beatable in Australia. So yeah, that's there. But let's see. Australia have found someone or the other who stands up for them. I think for now it is Cameron Green who has taken 3 wickets now. But yeah, now win or lose, I think it's going to hurt England anyway.
Many is slip between the cup and the lip, as they say. I think there is a lot to wait for. Let's see. But Ashes, really, something is going on. It's such a dampener of a series that it's really not that attention grabbing. Australia also, I thought they are falling back on their old failings of slight overconfidence maybe, and the dead rubbers of they used to play a bit poorly in the dead rubbers, taking it slightly easily. In the age of the WTC, I don't think they can afford to do that. They need to put their best foot forward, and I think they're found a bit lacking. But I still think Australia will win it. Let's see.
Yeah, from an England perspective, I think this match is crucial for them going forward because they have taken some decisions, bringing in Sam Billings to have a new look at the Test side. Their failing were always the opening top three, not scoring enough runs, and that has been the case throughout. So going forward, whether they would have enough players to replace the top three or not, it's largely dependent upon how Sam Billings and Oli Pop play in the middle order. Because Sam Billings again is a top order batsman who is fitted in because Josh Butler is not playing well. But if he continues to score runs, at least England will have some confidence in the middle order, and they can try to give the top order players a little bit more change. Saying that, I was astonished to see Rory Burns to be the second leading run scorer after Joe Root before the last match. So that says a lot about the failings of other players as well around the team. But for this particular Test match, I think a 50 odd from Ben Stokes would go a long way in pushing the run chase. Let's see. And even one win in this Ashes would go a long way in giving them the confidence to go forward. Because Australia, you see the players who have scored really well. Last test match, Usman Khawaja, he's still 35, 36. So they will have to rebuild their team as well. So in a larger scheme of things, this single test match victory for England is going to be a confidence booster for them.
And this is a good reflection of what Indian team looked like back in the day, right? I'm not sure if I came across this on an article or during the commentary that earlier, back in the early 90s or rather late 90s, it was Indian team was predominantly revolving around one man, and everyone else was just trying to chip in to ensure that they kind of make sure that and reach the total. So probably a little more support, as Bidhu mentioned, with the England batters would go a long way to ensure that not just from an Ashes perspective, that would come again over the years, but from their perspective as a test team, they need to have a lot more batters contributing along with Joe Root. I think that's imperative for them, because we are now speaking of WTC more often than what we used to over the last year or so. So I think it's not just about looking at how these two teams would prevail over the coming years, but it's more on an individual's front as well, that they would have to make those decisions, build up their team a lot quickly, because a lot more is at stake than just Ashes or any of the series. It's the WTC that we would speak about again and again. So I think they need to work on that as quickly as possible.
Yeah, but before I move to the next question, Adrut, I know you've been wanting to share your thoughts. So I'll let you share your thoughts before I move on. Go ahead, Adrut.
The very fact that England showed heart and fought in the fourth test has given them a lot of confidence, and that could be the reason why they are taking it ahead in this fifth test match. I was really pleased to see the way Jimmy and Stewart defended the last few overs, and from this England team standards, that's phenomenal. And if they go on to win it, I think if Joe Root scores a century, they will win this test match, and they would be back on track, England.
Yeah, I mean, I also feel probably they didn't have the rub of green their way, green being the pun here. But, with Bairstow injured and Joss Butler injured, right? I mean, when Bairstow seemed to have been doing really well, he scored a century last test match, and then he's injured. Joss Butler is injured. So they have to work with, especially with a misfiring top order and their replacement players get injured. I don't know if that has helped their cause, but I'm also looking forward to the English team finally standing up, right? Like what Vinayak said earlier, this is one of those Ashes where I stopped following after a 3-0. It almost seemed like nothing was there to follow, and I think it also speaks volumes about the character and resilience of English team to come back and compete after a 3-0 dropping. Imagine as fans, if we don't want to watch it, as players, imagine what they are going through, right? They have to live through this hell day in and day out, and all the media noise, experts, everything, which kind of gets amplified. So, yeah, I mean, let's hope that England don't squander this. Maybe Joe Root scores a century, which kind of helps him save his test career. Because if they lose 4-0, do you guys reckon that's the end of Joe Root? Joe Root, the captain, at least.
Yes, definitely. You've seen him in the last 1 year. It's been just a one-man show. Yeah. And they're showing in against India, both home and away has been pretty poor, Joe Root aside. And they're showing in Australia is dismal at best. So, yeah, there's something has to be done.
Yeah. I mean,
I
know.
See the back of Silverwood for sure. And Root, probably yes.
Yeah, I know.
I feel otherwise, because with what Adrut just mentioned, right, that over the last few series that they have undergone, right, be it with India away or at home or with Australia, it's just been mostly one man show, wherein you would only see Joe Root kind of leading the pack. But if Joe Root were to step down, I think it would come out, it would be in a slightly disturbing situation because of the England team that that they are currently placed at. I think it still requires more time, and I've always believed that adversity brings more opportunities. Currently, England team is at a situation where they're probably rebuilding their bench strength, right? You see, and something that Suraj also mentioned, right, that more or less at the beginning of an important or a crucial match, you would see one or two of their key players missing out, be it with Butler or someone entirely else. So I think at this point in time, maybe it's not the right time for Joe Root to step down or for him to be removed as a test captain, because he's probably the only one who's keeping the team intact and ensuring that even if they are losing a game, they still have the courage to fight back even after being 3-0 against Australia. So I think Joe Root still needs to continue, maybe find a way, encourage team strength and bench strength to ensure that they deliver a better performance. But at this point in time, I don't feel that it would be wise to remove Joe Root as a captain of the English team.
I hope the English administrator are as considerate and as pragmatic as you are, Rishab, because I know every time there's a Nationals loss, their heads roll, and it is one of those yardsticks which leads to a lot of people either resigning, stepping down, a lot of actions which happen around it. But you're right. I mean, they don't have any options other than maybe Ben Stokes. But again, Ben Stokes is just coming back from a break. We still don't know how his fingers healed. And is it too early for him to kind of take up the captaincy? I mean, otherwise, there don't seem to be anybody else who is good enough in that England team to take up the captaincy. Okay. Moving on. Sorry, Vinayak, go ahead.
Sorry. So, I mean, ultimately, to quote another cliche, a captain is only as good as the team, right? So a captain needs to be confirmed, needs to have a spot in the team first and foremost. And I don't know if anybody else apart from Root really has a confirmed spot in the team. Ben Stokes, like you said, is injured. He has his own other mental health issues and stuff like that. Bairstow, Butler, I mean, there's a host of, they have a host of problems there. And it would be really unfair if the administrators take it out on Root, although Root himself could do a Kohli and decide to step down to get. I mean, it does get to you when you are losing all the time. They have lost like 10 test matches in the last 12 months, and that's not a happy place to be in.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just the other thing I wanted to quickly point out was what is Travis Head and Usman Khawaja having this series? I mean, before this series, it didn't seem like Travis Head was somebody who could save. The top three batsmen in the Australian lineup were always Smith, Labuschagne, and Vaughan. Smith and Vaughan, and then maybe off late Labuschagne. But Travis Head has surprised me immensely. He saved them in the first test or the second test. Again, this test he scores a century. Khawaja gets one chance and he scores 2 centuries in every 1 century in each innings. Is it that spot? Is there something with that number 5 spot? Because you move Khawaja up and then he doesn't perform.
I'd love to see him in India. Sorry, go ahead, Tejas.
No, Travis Head is a special person, because I remember watching BBL in 2017. There was a game between Adelaide Strikers versus Sydney Sixers, and I think in T20 we've watched a lot of matches over the years with IPL, BBL, all those things, right? But I still believe it probably is top 3 in the history of T20, the innings that he played against the Sydney Sixers. I mean, if you guys haven't watched it, I really recommend you guys go and watch it. That shows the kind of talent Travis Head has. He single-handedly won them. I mean, I cannot even describe how good that innings was. So he's always been special. The only difference that I saw when he made his test debut was he tried to play, as a cliche test player, cliche number 5 who's going to block, and then take some time and then score runs later. But it didn't work out for him, and then he was dropped again. But when he came back, both if you see the Brisbane innings and even the Hobart innings, right, his strike rate was around 90-95. So that is the Travis Head that at least I have seen over the last 6-7 years, and playing like playing his natural game. Again, a cliche dialogue there, but playing his natural game has really helped him to come out and win games for Australia, not just make an impact, just to win matches altogether. As far as Usman Khawaja, I think he's one of the most gifted Australian batsmen in the last decade or so. It's only his undoing, his inconsistency that has marred him. Again, in this Test match, he could have just performed a little better, but again, you see that there is a little bit of inconsistency. But I think going ahead, Travis Head is probably the right number 5 for Australia, and also a captain's imperative, I might add.
That's interesting. I mean, in case, whenever if something happens to Pat Cummins, then you're saying Travis Head should be the deputy or somebody who should be looked at. They should be looking at grooming him. Okay, we let's move on from Ashes to crushing of our rainbow dreams, right? As I remember when we did this, did this show 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. We looked at what could be the possible 11, and we looked at the South African possible 11, and we said, maybe they don't play Duane Olivier. He's probably X factor. Look at their batting. Their batting is really thin, and we don't know who Keegan Peterson was, right? Just 2 innings in West Indies. What a star Keegan Peterson has been, in terms of taking all these opportunities. Do you think he was the key in getting them to win that 3rd Test match?
He, along with Dean Elgar, were the 2 keys. The way Dean Elgar played in Joburg, that was phenomenal. And the guys have carried on that form, the confidence into this test. So Dean Elgar set the pace, but in this test, it was Keegan Peterson all the way.
I think equal contributions from Indian batters also ensured that the South African ended up winning. But more importantly, I think Keegan Peterson, along with Dean Elgar, and not to forget to mention Jansen, because it was absolutely necessary for them as well to ensure that they are not letting Indian batters run away with a huge total, or the whole phrase that kept coming up throughout the entire series, right? Which one brings another. And I think these 2 individuals, Jansen and Peterson, have been the finds for South African for this particular series. You can talk about the brilliance that Elgar brought in when he made sure that the South African wins the 2nd match, right? But I think more than anything else, it's these 2 key players who stood out and brought in the major difference for the South African team.
I was just, I was just thinking that, I didn't imagine that at the end of the series, we would be talking about a brilliant Keegan Peterson, maybe resilient Dean Elgar, because we know that he could play that kind of innings. Just how Marco Jansen has contributed, sometimes the grittiness of Themba Bavuma. Then they had to adjust to losing Quinton de Kock right after the first test, who retired. It seemed like whatever could go wrong with them, experience, personal, everything went wrong, but they seem to adapt better than a superstar Indian team, right?
Yes, Suraj. I think one of the things that really helped South Africa was they were batting mostly on the 3rd and 4th days, because the test matches didn't go to the 5th day. And that helped them really well in terms of their batting. And the second thing is they were not chasing too high a score. The only time India batted well was the first day of the first test match, where they scored some 270 odd runs with the loss of 3 wickets. But from there on, India were not setting the scores that would actually scare away the South African batters. They knew that if they would hang in there, they had ample time to chase those scores of 200 odd runs. The other thing is, if you see every new day, whenever India went into bat, we thought, okay, maybe the first session would belong to India, but there would be a couple of wickets that would go down. Majorly, the set batsmen would go out. But for South Africa, whenever they went into a new session or a new day, they hung in there for the first hour. And that ensured that the batters cashed in on the later in the day. The contributions of Rassie van der Dussen in terms of number of balls he played goes a long way in shielding Themba Bavuma from getting out or getting exposed to the new ball in the new day. So those things, like, for example, taking the time in a new session or a new day, helped them a lot. And that frustrated the Indians, which compounded from them showing a lot of aggressions, unnecessary ways, and playing into the hands of South African batters.
I believe there's one more side to the story, which is after the first test match, when they had lost not just the test match, but even Quinton de Kock had announced the retirement, right? They were probably at a stage where they had nothing to lose. Because you could always, comment upon the fact that they are still growing, they're still evolving as a team, they're still trying their bench strength and whatnot. And more importantly, while we do take in the consideration of South African team having nothing to lose, Indian team on the other hand had probably everything to lose. We have Pujare and Rahane and there have been continuous talks about them, getting a drop or they getting removed. Kohli, while we certainly speak of the standards that he has been, let's speak of the fact that he hasn't really performed as a batter over the last many months, right? And that has been the major differentiator, if you ask me, that the middle order batters performing for South African and the middle order is performing for Indian. And I think that has been the key differentiator because our bowlers have stepped up. You can talk about the opening partnership that was there, but I think it was the middle unit that have kind of been a letdown for us because of Rahane, Pujara. Kohli did perform, but I think that was the key differentiator.
Yeah, Dean Elgar the other day. I think after the second test match, he came out and said that Rabada, he needed little bit of a dressing down in the dressing room. You've got to give credit to someone like Dean Elgar, right? Not enormously talented, doesn't have a cover drive, and doesn't come forward. He has his technical frailties, but and he looks calm on the field, no doubt. But behind the scenes, he's had some really tough conversations with someone like Rabada, and you saw how he responded to that criticism. I think India were at the receiving end of a fiery Rabada just because of the real dressing down that Dean Elgar gave him after the probably first day of the second test match. So you've got to admire the personality, the grit of Dean Elgar away from even batting. And this is where captaincy also matters a lot, right? We always say that the captain is as good as his team, but a captain can actually make a difference here. So if not for his dressing down, maybe we could have seen a little more erratic Rabada, couple of wickets, probably India wouldn't have lost and we would have scored around 300 plus in Joburg, and that's series over. But it takes courage when people are leaving South African team, going abroad as part of Kolpak deal and all those things. You have to have the courage to go and talk to your bowler, saying that, dude, this is not what we expect from you. You've got to do better, and have to have the confidence that the other guy will listen and play for you rather than going away from the country. And that, I think, credit should go to Dean Elgar as well as a captain, even irrespective of his batting. Great job, I think. Yeah,
I think Dean Elgar should definitely thank people of UK for voting for Brexit. Huh? Now Kolpak doesn't seem that exciting any longer, which is how Olivier came back. But
two things. I mean, one headline that stood out for me from an article, I think on Cricinfo, if I'm not mistaken, is that somebody quoted that the bowlers failed to bail out the batsmen in India's case, and I think that is very well put. The batting was a major failure. Like, I think we have everybody has spoken about it. I think it's a major failure. Pant, there are some sparks. Pant's innings in the last test match was wonderful. Kohli in the first innings was wonderful. The first test, KL Rahul and Mayank, and there was some sparks, but overall it failed. It was not consistent. However, the bowling, I think, our bowling was fantastic. There was a stat on Cricinfo about the number of false shots and the wickets for the number of false shots. India, I mean, it was a drastic difference in that. So they managed to get more wickets for less number of false shots, the South African bowlers, whereas we were definitely unlucky with that. So that is something, that's just a factor. I mean, it's not an excuse, not a excuse for the overall result. But I think apart from maybe the second innings in Joburg and the second innings in the last test match, the second test match and the last test match, I think the bowling was superlative. It didn't get the results that we had expected, and I think that that showed up in the end result.
I just have one question for you guys. Are we still missing a genuine all-rounder? I know there was Hardik Pandya, but who's now injured. We don't know what is happening. Lord Shardul sometimes contributes, sometimes may not, right? Do we still have scope for a genuine all-rounder? Like, see what Pant does with the way he plays. He needs to be given freedom. He can get out on 0, he can get out on 100. So whatever you get from Pant is a bonus. So, and you have the top 5 batters. So there needs to be one more in the lower order who is a genuine all-rounder who can even do like a 30-40. I don't know if some of you believe there's scope for that.
It's an interesting way to think about it. But if you see the Indian teams who reached the number 1 ranking, or they were even in the eras of Ganguly and Dhoni, they were still in the top 2 test teams. We never had a great all-rounder. In the 2000s, we were often speaking about Irfan Pathan to take that spot, which never happened. And we went on to Hardik Pandya and sometimes to Jadeja. But the fact is, if you see closely, our batters are not averaging. In the average of KL Rahul, Mayank, Ajinkya Rahane are all in the late 30s, which is not good. You see Sehwag's average is like close to 50. The top 5 of that era all averaged above 50. And now I think only Virat Kohli averages 50. So if you are a genuine batter and if you are having an average of 37, 38, it doesn't augur well. You can have an all-rounder, but he will again contribute those 30, 35 runs. The majority of the runs have to come from the top 3 who get settled. Some big hundreds have to be scored by them. You can talk about this series again, saying that Rahane and Pujara did not perform. But even KL Rahul and Mayank Agarwal, they just played one good innings. They never went on to score a lot of runs in this particular series. Murli Vijay used to do that during Dhoni time. He used to play a couple of really good innings in that series, which laid the foundation for others to flourish. So we are missing that. Of course, the not having Jadeja did not give us those 25 runs in the later half of the innings. But that I don't think is a real factor for us losing the series. Yes, we could have competed better if Jadeja was around. But I don't see lack of an all-rounder being that big a problem for India, at least in the test form match.
Good.
Ashwin did contribute with the bat, at least in the first 2 tests. The last test was sort of a very big disappointment in the last innings, especially. I think he should have stuck there for another half an hour or so, and that would have given Pant. I mean, Pant was playing really well, very intelligent cricket. I think Ashwin had the skills to stick around. I think if he had stuck around, that would have changed the fate of the game a bit. Really sad that he couldn't stamp his. Now Jadeja comes back. It's a no-brainer in overseas, at least, that who's going to take that spot.
I think Jadeja, we should be aware that he is not a number 7. He is a genuine number 6 batter. Going by his stats for the last 2 years, right? He can actually fit into any number top 6 of the world. He's that good. So we did really miss him at that point. And yeah, I have to go with Vinayak there. I was very disappointed with Ashwin's shot in the 3rd innings. Pant was playing so well. He has the skills. He stuck around in Sydney. We know that he has the defensive capabilities, and he goes for an expansive drive outside off. I mean, come on, for all the variations, for all the skill that we attribute to Ashwin, right? He's very intelligent guy. You can feel that when he speaks, and for him to do that, it's just unacceptable. I mean, he has set himself really high standards, and he wasn't anywhere near it in that 3rd test match.
Good. Okay, now that we've dissected what led to India not winning the series in South Africa, which we all felt was their best opportunity. We'll still keep our hopes high, because we could probably see them winning in England, that one test which they did not play last year. But hope is what lets us, see a better tomorrow and keeps us going back to watch Indian team in test cricket. Now, moving on from there, let's address the elephant in the room. The big coming out, Kohli has decided to step down as Test cricket. Now, I would like to get comment from each one of you in terms of, do you think, I know the opinion could be divided, right? So feel free to be as honest as you can. How many of you really liked Kohli's brand of captain? Um, and if you believe this was the right time for him, is it a big relief for Indian cricket, or it was too early and maybe something which could which should have happened after a couple of years?
Yes, I feel that Kohli's retirement as captain came really premature. I had expected him to continue as the captain till at least 2023, till the end of this cycle of the Test Championship. I did expect him to have the hunger to go after the one ICC trophy that he could have won, but now that he is retired, even that is not possible. So yes, it did come as a big shock. But having said that, in the last 2 years he hasn't scored a century, so that pressure would have built up, and that would have led him to quit.
Yeah, I think there is more than meets the eye. Kohli, just before the T20 World Cup, he writes a message about stepping down from the T20 captaincy, looking forward to Test captaincy, ODI captaincy. He's removed for the ODI captaincy. There's a controversy around that. Then he steps down from the Test captaincy. I think there is definitely more than, we have to connect the dots here and see that it is not. To me at least, and it's perfectly, I mean, it's purely my subjective opinion that it is not something that he has taken it himself. It is something that has been forced on him. I mean, there is a series coming up against against Sri Lanka at home. He would have won. I mean, we are top favorites for that. If we would have won it, it would have increased his win percentage and embellished his credentials even more. He could have taken it easy. He could have gone there. The question really is not about whether we liked Kohli's brand of captaincy or no. I, for one, I mean, I found him very abrasive to begin with, and I thought I'm more for the Rahul Dravid kind of cricketer than the Kohli kind of cricketer. It is not about that. Whether you like him or not, one thing I think it is undisputed that when he was on the field, he gave his all for the team and he wanted to win. That is something. The manifestation of that could be different, and the way he expresses himself could be different. Some may like it, some may not like it. The way it has happened, the way it has transpired, is something that leaves a very bad taste in my mouth, at least. And it was not expected from a time when a former player is a president of the BCCI. I thought it could be, and a former player who has himself complained about how the board has treated him and how he was chucked out of captaincy. So that is something that leaves a very bad taste. I think it is something that we need to think about. Yes, this has happened in the past. Yes, Kapil, Gavaskar, everybody has been, they've gone through this. Board politics is not something new, but we need to evolve, right? I mean, it is not okay to say that since it has happened before, it is okay to happen again. I think on the other side, I really hope that now that he doesn't have to deal with the board and other politics of the board, hopefully he gets a chance to prove himself as a batsman in the next 2-3 years, which would be probably his last years in cricket. He really brings it up to the board and he shows them what he really is. I really hope that comes through. But sad ending. I hoped, like Adrut, I wanted to see him lift the ICC trophy, Test trophy. I think that is something that he desperately wanted to do, and we had a good chance of doing that with his focus on winning Test matches.
I would resonate with that particular moment, with that particular thought, that of all the players, of all the captains that are captaining different sides in the Test captain, if there was one person who should have lifted it, it should have been Kohli. Simply because you could speak tons and tons about how T20I has evolved, how ODI has evolved, but Kohli, to a greater extent, has been single-handedly responsible for evolving the brand of Test cricket. And the way things have evolved, the way things have happened, of course, it raises a lot of questions than the number of answers that it brings out. But more than anything else, I still feel that Kohli should have continued as a Test captain, simply because he was in it for a minute, and seeing him stepping down and someone else probably taking up would probably have its own consequences as to how the Indian Test cricket team would evolve. Because that's something that you could have noticed even in the second match when he was not playing because of the back spasm, right? So even in that one game where you would see him sitting in the room and the Indian team going out, the energy that he brings in as a captain, as a member, I think that was simply phenomenal, and that's something that's going to make a big of a difference that with him stepping down as a captain.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also, as Vinayak said, I'm also for all the Dravid's Tendulkar kind of leadership, right? Where you're calm, composed. MSD as well, to a certain extent, was very calm demeanor. But I admire Kohli because he doesn't give a damn about records, right? It doesn't really matter to him if he's 99 not out. If as long as the team wins, he's probably happier than getting a century. And it's very rare for someone as talented and as gifted as Kohli, right? They go for the records, they go for the glory. Of course, no one admits it, but you can see the difference when they go to 95, 96, the kind of shots they play, all those things. If you notice, then you cannot really point finger at Kohli at any point of time since his debut. He was there, as Rishab said, to win the game for his country, give his 120%, as he said in his statement as well. That's why I admire him. Many people don't like him, but he's just this invaluable guy who showed the whole team that team matters more than individuals. And I'm really sad. I actually am really sad since yesterday that he took this decision to go out, right? And you also get a feeling with Kohli these days that he feels, I'm quoting Shab here as well. So in his analysis, when he stepped down from ODI cricket, or when he was doing a preview for 2022, he said that it gives, it feels like Kohli feels that the whole world is against him. No, we are not against him. He absolutely loves the guy. We are so thankful of what he has brought to Indian cricket. He should just feel the love. I mean, he steps into Chinnaswamy during a full house at RCB. The roof blows. It's just incredible the kind of fan support he has. So I really hope that he comes back and sees the love that the fans have for him, and prosper as a batsman, and probably go back to being the run machine that he once was, before I think 2019, 2018. I really hope so. I'm really sad that he left, but if that means that the run machine comes back, then I have no complaints.
Just on that point, I'm just thinking, Tejas, I hope Kohli looks at all the messages and all the love, and then he said, "Oh, I just wanted to check how many of you truly love me now that I've known. I'll just take this back. I just wanted to really get the reinforcement of people valuing me. It does seem like they do. So the world's not against me, and I could give it a second shot. That's.
There's this one more thing that I've forgotten to mention, and that would, to a greater extent, go with the kind of leadership that he has brought in over the last many years as a Test captain, right? Where, as a nation, as cricketing fans from India, we are a lot more disappointed that we have lost in overseas. To earlier, what it was, that it was an obvious normal, right? And more importantly, even if we have lost, it's the batters who have let us down and not the bowlers. And I think that's the sentiment that Kohli had brought in early 2016, 2017, that we need proper fast bowlers attack. Not just three bowlers that would, play a game, but more than that, we need to build a proper bench strength. We need to have 5 bowlers. And these are quick bowlers that we're speaking of. So it's that kind of vision that he had set for the team, for the nation, that has changed and evolved our perception to Indian cricketing team so much that we are no longer giving credits to our fast bowlers as much as we should have. We're just speaking about the letdown of how our batters have, let us down. And I think that has been the biggest branding that Kohli could have brought to the Indian cricketing team as such, that we are now no longer accustomed to losing a series, not a test match, losing a series outside. And that has simply evolved because of the way he has led. I'll speak only for the test captain, the test matches that Indian team has gone about. And that's the biggest, branding that you could associate with Kohli. And I think that right there would talk about how he has led as a captain for the Indian team.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true, right? We are all sitting here feeling disappointed that we did not win in South Africa, because you've got so used to it. Like they won in Australia, they won last time around, they won this time around. They are leading in England, and now we were expecting them to win in South Africa. Through my growing up years, I would never have imagined, and we used to celebrate India winning one test overseas. Not the other
No, I
thing.
mean,
Sorry, good.
no, you say just a series. I was expecting 3-0. I'm even more spoiled.
Yeah, I know. But also the other thing for me was Indian, especially when they went to an Australia and England, the Indian team was known to not react to the on-field abusing or whatever the other players did, right? I think what with Kohli, the brand which came in was that, you give me an earful, I will give you an earful, right? So it's an eye for an eye, which kind of then ensure that the other teams also realize that, listen, we can't just keep talking to them because they'll talk back, and then they can actually swear more than we do, and they will obviously show that they are better with their batting and their bowling skills. So it's time that we start respecting. So that mental shift is another thing which I thought, as much as a good portion of the country might not like a very aggressive, outspoken, in-your-face captain, it is because of him being that way. It's kind of rubbed off on the team, and it's also intimidating to the opposition.
Absolutely. The one thing though, I mean, that is definitely a positive thing, but the one negative out of that, probably maybe there's not the time, but say if you take the example of the last test match, it seemed like they thrive on conflict only. So the urge is to manufacture conflict when it is not there. So that is something that sort of is the other extreme. But yeah, more often than not, it works in our favor, and I think that's a big positive.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the great Michael Jordan thrived on conflict. Every single time he seemed to perform well, he had to manufacture conflict for himself, or he found conflict which seemed to drive him. It just to drive him so mad that he would take that out in his game. But yeah, well.
Yes, his handling of the Kumble incident in 2017. So that time he was at the peak of his career, and he seemed unshakable. And he seems to be having a good chemistry with Shastri, and he had his way of bringing Shastri into the team. So now when his godfather Shastri is no longer there to bless him, I think he would have felt alone, and yeah, that's why he would have felt the world is against him, because when Shastri was there, somebody could shield him, and now there's no Shastri.
Mm. Yeah, that's another angle which I thought about as well. But yeah. Anyways, I mean, it's time's always short when we get talking on these topics, right? We could continue for a couple more hours debating, discussing, deliberating, but we've there is. Sorry, go ahead, Vinayak.
Just one thing. Sorry, I mean, I thought you're concluding. Just one thing before we conclude. Rishab, what do you feel about your namesake being named as being looked upon as the next captain?
I feel it's still too early for him to take up the mantle of a test captaincy. T20 probably, but I think for T20 as well, we have better alternatives. So for now, Pant as a test captain, I still feel it's too early for him to take up that, because he needs to develop that temperament of going out as a test player. Maybe he's there as a T20 player, almost there as a ODI player as well. But he can be groomed as a captain for the Indian team in the test side for the coming years. But I think as of this moment, it's too early for him to take up that mantle.
Yeah, I mean, also, I think that guy needs a lot of freedom, right? So let him just be free. Let him go play his game. When he comes off, he can change the outcomes. When he doesn't come off, fair enough. You can get him to introspect. Yeah,
That's
putting
true.
somebody like that and putting the burden.
Suraj, we think there's some sort of audio issues at your end.
Captaincy burden on him.
Got it. No, that's exactly why I mentioned, right, that maybe it's too early for him to take up that mantle. But we have seen how he has stepped up as a player in IPL, for that matter, right, while leading Delhi. So yes, if you put on that pressure on him as a captain, he might do well. He might evolve quickly in a shorter format of the game. But I still think he has a long way to go to evolve as a player, as a captain in the longest format of the game.
Yeah, I think the Indian team might go the RRR way, right? Rohit, Rahul, and maybe a third R, Rishab.
Yeah.
All right.
I really think Rishab's the best format is the Test cricket. I think he's dispensable in the ODIs and the T20s, but not he's indispensable in the Test team. I think the selectors might just do a Graham Smith on us and anoint him captain.
I hope you don't.
Or a Gilchrist. Or a Gilchrist.
Yeah. All right, but it's been a wonderful session. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the insights you gave. It's been close to 50 odd minutes, but I know that it seemed like we just started the show. So time flies when we start talking about things which we love, and it's indeed a sad day. And like I said, I'm hoping heart and hearts that Kohli might just turn around and say, okay, fair enough. I might reconsider and come back maybe for a couple of years. It was an emotional decision. It's just a wishful thinking. If it happens, great. And we can always claim that we called it out on this show first. But otherwise, hoping to see Indian cricket go into, grow from strength to strength. Thank you again, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day and look forward to seeing you on the next show. Bye-bye.
Thank you.